Brussels is applying unprecedented pressure on Hungary. It could withhold billions of dollars over the country's rule of law issues, along with an anti-LGBTQ law. Back in June, the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban signed legislation that bans anyone under 18 from being shown content that encourages, and I have the law here, forbidden to make accessible to persons who have not attained 18 content that is pornographic or gratuitously sexual in nature, or sex change, or homosexuality. It's the amendment to this law, which I have with me. Ursula von der Leyen and many other EU leaders have condemned this law and the policy.
The Hungarian bill is a shame. This bill clearly discriminates against people on the basis of their sexual orientation. And it goes against all the values, the fundamental values of the European Union. And this is human dignity, it is equality, and is the human fundamental rights. So we will not compromise on these principles.
So that's that is the President of the Commission. Hungary's Foreign Minister is Péter Szijjártó. He joins me now here in New York. Minister, it is good to talk to you. We will discuss a variety of issues, but I start with the law. The law is one, I've got a copy here. It says it takes a more severe action against paedophile offenders and deals with the protection of children, particularly, of course, making accessible persons under 18 on homosexuality. Minister, you know as well as I do, I am gay. I'm caught by this law. Do you consider me to be a paedophile?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's really great to be back after 1.5 years. And I also respect the fact that you have a copy of the law in your hands, because recently, whenever I had debates with anybody, be a journalist or a Western European politician, I had to debate in a way that I knew that my counterpart has never read the law. And I'm very happy and I respect that now I can talk to a person who has read the law. And I really respect the way of life you have chosen for yourself. And this law respects also the right of all adults above the age of 18 to choose a way of life they want to live.
Is it appropriate
with whoever they would like to live, and then with whoever they would like to love, you know.
But the law. You didn't deny, by the way, my first question. But I'll take that as a no. That you don't.
Sorry. I have to answer that part of the question, of course.
No, you don't.
Sorry for that. You know, but I really want to address that. So this law has two parts. One part is about to penalize, to punish very seriously all kinds of acts committed in a framework or relationship with pedophilia. And the other part of the law ensures that in order to protect our children, the exclusive right of the education of our children regarding sexual orientation goes to their parents. Okay. These are two totally separate parts of the law.
Then it was unfortunate they are in the same law, but let's get to the point here. The age of consent, as I understand it, in Hungary is 14. So you have a law that basically says people who could have been practicing these acts for 4 years cannot see content about them, right?
This law is about the following. Up to the age of...
Minister, just focus, please, on that aspect. That the age of consent is 14. That, if you were going to make a law, arguably that would be the age. But you went for 18. So you have gone for an age where most people are considered young adults, teenagers.
Yeah, but in the Hungarian law, the age of becoming an adult is the age of 18. So that's why this law says that up to the age of 18, it is the exclusive right of the parents to conduct the education regarding sexual orientation for the kids. And above age of the 18, whatever happens, the state has nothing to do with it. Nothing. So whoever adults above the age of 18 would like to love, whoever they would like to live with, whatever kind of life they would like to live, state has nothing to do with it. So that's why I have to tell you, that's why I have to tell you that it's so annoying that this law is being portrayed as if it was an anti-LGBT law. it's really frustrating that that those who criticize us say that this law discriminates the homosexuals, because this is not true. Simply not true.
So you say it's not true, and I promise this is my last question on this aspect. We have other things to talk about. You say it's not true. Now, I repeat that. You say it is not true. Ursula von der Leyen says the Hungarian bill is a shame. You heard her. The Belgium, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, Latvia, Italy, Greece, Austria, Cyprus and Portugal, they say it represents a flagrant form of discrimination on sexual orientation. Now, if these people have advisors, and these people are experts as well, why are they wrong?
Look, here we have a serious debate with them. There's a group of countries in the European Union, definitely a smaller one compared to what you have mentioned now, who thinks differently. And those countries have not joined this opinion. And we have a very serious debate with Ursula von der Leyen also. I think it's a shame the way she speaks about the Hungarian legislation. And I have to tell you that I agree with her only on one thing. When she says there's no compromise on this issue, I agree with her. We are not going to make any kind of compromise on that, regardless of the fact how they blackmail us with those European funds to be withdrawn, which should be paid to Hungary.
So are you, moving across this, are you feeling a little anxious in Budapest as the opposition seems likely to present a unified candidate against Prime Minister Orban, who incidentally, after Merkel goes, will be the longest standing. He will be the elder statesman, the father of the house, as they call it in Parliament in Britain, as the longest standing Prime Minister. But are you feeling anxious because you could lose this next election next year?
No, there's no reason to feel anxious. Basically, with this structure, which the opposition is building now, including everybody from the far right to the far left, the question is going to be very clear in next April during our elections. Whether people would like to come back to the period of time before 2010, when the country was indebted, when the taxes were high, when unemployment was in the sky, or they would like to continue what has been happening since 2010, when we break economic records, when there's full employment in the country, and when we support families. So it's going to be a very clear choice, a very clear decision to be made by the people next April.
Don't you have to make that same decision as a government, based on the principle of the Article 7 proceedings over your rule of law issues, based on the LGBTQ issues, based on what your own Prime Minister said? He said the EU is important for us because it provides Hungary with a market. We need to stand up for the EU and remain in it. In other words, you see the EU as a purely economic venture, an EEC, if you like, the original EEC. But aren't you going to have to make a decision on that?
No, look, our interest is that the European Union becomes strong again. Because unfortunately, in the recent years, we have weakened a lot. If you look back to 2000, which is 21 years ago, the share of ours, I mean, the share of European Union when it comes to global GDP was 21%. Now it's only 18. The United States trades more with China than with the European Union. That was the last year was the first year ever for this phenomenon. So European Union should be stronger in the future. But the way to make European Union stronger, now it's under very heavy debate. And we take part in this debate, and our position is that the European Union can be strong in the future in case it is being based on strong member states. So we are very heavily against the so-called federalistic approach, which would like to create something like a United States of Europe. This is something that we reject. We need strong member states, and based on strong member states, the European Union has a chance to be strong again. We are working for that.
Minister, I look forward to, well, thank you as always for always being courteous and polite and coming in to talk to me. And I look forward to seeing you in Budapest with my husband, and I'll buy you dinner and your wife.
We would welcome you. We would welcome you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister.